All right, Canada, we really got to get to the bottom of this. There is a tremendous amount of just stuff happening right now in this country with the news cycle, with other parties strong-arming other parties. And I got to tell you, Justin Trudeau is getting the short end of the stick. He is getting beaten to a pulp from every single party. You got the Conservatives that have pulled out the dust-covered rule book to be able to do what they are doing right now, but just pretty much shutting down government, which would then automatically trigger the bloc calling a vote of non-confidence. I know what you're thinking. That might be a stretch. No way, that can't be real. Now I'm going to explain it in just a little bit. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage y'all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. We have a lot of stuff to cover in this video, so I hope you stick around for the full thing. So without further ado, let's get into it. Of course, we're going to start off with the polls. You got Justin Trudeau at 61 projected seats. You're going to start to see that really tumble down because of what's happening right now. He is in a position where he can't really do much other than incriminate himself. So his popularity is just going to absolutely tank. Pierre Poilievre's, on the other hand, my prediction is that you're going to start to see this climb to maybe 223, 225 on the next update, which is massive. Like, I don't think any party ever has had that many seats. In the bloc at 42, I'm actually thinking they're going to go up. They're probably going to poach some Liberal seats. And then Jagmeet Singh here. I always have to zoom in. I 100% guarantee you it's not to be condescending. I wouldn't do that to you, Jag. Little number for little boy. 17 projected seats. Yikes, not looking good for you. 99% likely across the board for the Conservatives of winning the most seats and odds of a majority government. So things are looking good right there. Where they're not looking good is with North Korea. Tensions with, global affairs and all of that. So Kim Jong-un stated that North Korea will respond with nuclear weapons in the event of force being used by South Korea and the U.S. And I got to say, that doesn't look very good. I don't want to know what kind of boom that makes, but it seems like we are increasingly getting closer and closer to the potential of something really, really bad happening, especially with Israel's response recently to bombing a military base in Syria, which happens to be Russian. That's how they responded to Iran. So not very good. But to talk more about the situation, we actually have Vashi, who sits down with grumpy old Minister Blair here to kind of discuss things. So let's take a quick look at what's going on.
I note that the Prime Minister, after Iran launched those ballistic missiles at Israel, said that Israel has a right to defend itself. And I wondered if you could qualify for Canadians listening. Does that mean that Israel has the right to, shoot those missiles out of the sky or defend them with the Iron Dome? Or does it mean that Israel has the right to retaliate?
Yeah, to be very clear, we unequivocally condemn the escalation that was perpetrated by Iran firing those missiles at Israel. That's completely unacceptable. And certainly, Israel as a sovereign nation has every right to defend itself, certainly defend themselves from the incoming missiles, but also to respond in a calibrated and proportional way in order to make sure that they're not further victimized by an unprovoked attack as this one was by Iran.
So your position is, if I could interpret it correctly, that they do have a right, that Israel does have a right to retaliate, but that it should be proportional.
Well, and retaliation, I think, needs to be, carefully considered, because that isn't the purpose of a military response from Israel, but rather to diminish Iran's ability to continue to attack them. I think that's part of their right of defense. What's
the difference? What delineation are you drawing?
Well, I think that where Iran still has a capacity to continue to launch unprovoked attacks against Israel, Israel has a right not only to knock those missiles down from the sky, but to target the source of those missiles to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
So is that, in your view, the sort of threshold for what you could or the federal government would endorse as far as the retaliation go? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. A number of questions, for example, have been directed at the U.S. president around whether or not the U.S. would back Israel striking Iran's nuclear facilities or their oil facilities. Am I to draw from what you just qualified that Canada would not support those actions?
No, and in fact, I've tried to be very careful in how I've explained our position on this, Vashi. I believe that Israel has a right to defend itself. That defense should not be simply limited at their border as their missiles are being fired at them. I think that their ability to diminish Iran's capacity to fire those missiles at them is part of their right of defense. I do not believe that frankly, we're not endorsing and supporting retaliation against other targets, only at those targets that might be necessary for Israel to defend itself against further attack.
I know.
So the biggest takeaway from this is that our Minister of Defense is a babbling old man who doesn't really know what he's talking about. But also, as the story was being told, as they were talking here, I don't know if you noticed, but at the bottom of the screen where it says World News, it says a moose was rescued from a swimming pool in New Hampshire. And that's pretty much the biggest takeaway that I have from that news. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And then you have Justin Trudeau, who's asked by reporters, what's it like? What's it like being the Prime Minister? And here's his response.
And you know, I was at the UN just last week where I met with a number of world leaders and we talked about many things, but behind their questions was usually one simple question for a Canadian Prime Minister, which is, so how exactly do you do it in Canada? How do you make sure that you're maintaining such an incredibly warm and welcoming and prosperous society? A society where people of varying religions, backgrounds, ethnicities, creeds, stories, languages, not just come together to be neighbors, but thrive and grow together in an incredible way. Well, one of the parts of our answers is that we don't ask people to check their identities at the door when they come in. We want to make sure we continue to celebrate the language, the culture, the identity, and all the diverse richness that everyone who comes to Canada adds to Canada. What you bring to this country every single day, whether you've been here for 10 years or 10 generations, makes a huge difference to who we are and what we will continue to be. Core to our values as Canadians is a desire to learn, to share, and to embrace what makes us different. And then core to being Canadian is an unwavering belief that embracing our differences makes us more innovative, prosperous, and confident as a country. And my friends, that's something worth celebrating, and it's one of the many things that make us so proud to be Canadian.
Yikes. Yeah, I know a lot of people really don't like it when Justin Trudeau talks. And in fact, it puts them to sleep. And speaking of sleep, I actually have been finding something for myself to help with my own personal sleep. You want to hear a crazy statistic? 1 in 3 people in Canada have a sleeping problem. And the craziest part about that is I'm not surprised it's 3 out of 3 considering Justin Trudeau is running the show. Knowing this and having some sleep issues myself, I've started to poke around and I've looked for alternatives besides CBD and the obvious ones that have a tremendous amount of side effects. I came across the wellness company and their restful sleep, something that they actually call nature's nightcap. It has some powerful plants like passion flower, ashwagandha, and chamomile extracts. And those are just a few ingredients that will put you out 100% so you can have a phenomenal sleep. Like I have been having a phenomenal sleep, melatonin free, which is the best part. Some of the gains in this is that it relaxes your brain, calms things down. It has plant adaptogens. It really reduces your stress and anxiety. It helps your naturally occurring increased serotonin, and it's a phenomenal neuron damage protector. Lack of sleep is an absolute nightmare. And in order for me to be able to get through the news cycle and really just comprehend everything that's happening in this catastrophic state of the world, but specifically in Canada, I've really been resorting to this. And if you would like a piece of the pie, there's a link down below in the description and in the pinned comment below to get 10% off. And once again, this is 100% melatonin free. This is what I've been doing to personally get a restful sleep, and I hope you can join me. Not in bed, I'm married, but nonetheless, link down below in the description and the pinned comment below. Next up, we have to talk about this entire situation that's involving the RCMP, that's involving a government shutout, and just kind of everything that's going on. So the Bloc Québécois, they have said if they don't get a certain amount of money for seniors and older folks in Quebec, they're going to vote for a motion of non-confidence by the end of October 29th specifically. But for that motion to be passed, for them to get that, government has to be working. You have to be able to resume session in government and so that they can vote on getting that, right? Government has to be functioning. Now, Pierre Poilievre, Andrew Scheer, the Conservatives, went through the rule book and found some laws, some strategy that would block the Liberal government to basically figure out all the bad crap that's going on. All this slush fund, you've heard $300 million, $400 million. You've heard that thrown around. You heard the green slush fund thrown around. So there's a lot of different conflicts of interest. There's a lot of corruption. There's a whole lot of nonsense happening behind the scenes. And, then you got the 11 names of different MPs that we don't know who they are. There's a whole lot of crap happening. So they pulled out this kind of Hail Mary, which blocks government from being able to do anything. Now, if they want government to resume, then here's the kicker. Justin Trudeau has to release unredacted reports to people so that they can resume. Now, the government or the party leaders are getting behind closed doors and they're trying to figure this out. But in the meantime, government is suspended. Sure, House of Commons is in session, but they can only talk about certain things. If you haven't noticed, the past couple of days has been kind of not really that interesting. They've had question period. They've had some committee meetings, but other than that, when they get into the House of Commons, into Parliament, they normally are able to talk about certain motions, to vote on certain things. They cannot do that right now. Are you still following? So the Bloc needs the government to vote on a motion. If Justin Trudeau wants to vote on that motion, he has to release incriminating evidence, which would then trigger a criminal investigation by the RCMP. So he's holding those cards close to his chest so that now they can't vote on this motion that the Bloc wants. So that means that the Bloc, unless Justin Trudeau wants to self-incriminate himself, the Bloc will not get what they want, which will then piss them off and say, okay, that's it. We've had enough. We're calling for a vote of non-confidence. And they can vote for a vote of non-confidence. This is insane. And this is a high IQ 4D, 5D, 6D chess move. And yes, that is the watered down version of it. I could use different variations of different words to explain it, but that's kind of the best way that I'm able to get it across. So even myself, I can understand, because there's a whole lot of moving parts. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of mainstream stuff. And that's kind of the lowdown. So now let's take a look at what has since happened. The government, right? You have the Conservatives, parties are saying, okay, give us that information, Trudeau. Show us what you're hiding. And Trudeau has responded with, nope. Again, the Liberals have refused to release the documents regarding the Green Slush Fund scandal. So once again, Trudeau doesn't want to self-incriminate himself for obvious reasons. So it's either self-incriminate and go with a RCMP investigation, or you vote for the Bloc. Like he's got to pick one or the other. And either way, this ends with an early election, which is why you're seeing the mainstream media talk about a fall election. There is no way in hell that Justin Trudeau is going to hand over those documents, which are going to be insanely incriminating. So here's what Karina Gould has to say about the entire thing. Now, she's complaining that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are doing these partisan attacks, and oh my goodness, how dare they run to the RCMP, and this is outrageous, how dare they? But this is not going to end well for them. And since this has all come out, have you noticed there are certain members of Parliament, certain Liberal and NDP members that aren't in the House? Probably because they are consulting with legal advisors so that they can cover their ass. Because if Trudeau, for some reason, decides to release this information, you have a dozen, 24 peoples that are 100% screwed. They are going to be nailed to the wall, dead to rights, and they could face some serious jail time, including Justin Trudeau.
Good afternoon. I want to talk briefly about what has been going on in the House of Commons for the past week. For Canadians, it's important that we get back to debating the issues that matter to them, and particularly when it comes to advancing important legislation. However, what's happening right now is something that every single Canadian should be extremely alarmed about. The Conservative Party of Canada has put forward a motion that would blur the lines of the independence of our democratic institutions, notably that between the legislative branches of government and the judicial branches of government. Every branch of government, with the exception of the legislature, is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And now the House of Commons and parliamentarians have extraordinary powers and extraordinary privileges that they get to exercise, should be in the support of democracy. But what we are seeing the Conservatives do right now is attempt to use those extraordinary powers and extraordinary privileges to get around judicial oversight and to basically trample the charter rights of Canadians. They have the power, and it is confirmed, and Parliament has extraordinary powers, to be able to compel documents. That is something that is agreed upon. But what they are doing for the first time, unprecedented in Canadian history, is compelling documents not for the use of parliamentarians, but to give directly to our federal police, to the RCMP. Now, there's a reason why the RCMP normally and have the responsibility to get a search warrant or to get a subpoena or to go to a judge to get information from Canadians, because they are bound to protect the charter rights of Canadians, and if they're going to suspend those rights, they have to have the authority to do that.
But see, this is what's so ironic is you wouldn't be scared right now, Karina and Liberals. You wouldn't be frightened if there was nothing to hide. You bring a piece of paper to the RCMP. If it's just a bunch of scribbles, it doesn't matter. But if it's incriminating, then you have this panic mode. They are chasing their own tail. They are scared absolutely shitless. And can you blame them? This is insane.
But what the Conservatives are trying to do is to say that they are going to use the extraordinary privilege and power of Parliament to go around those very necessary and correct judicial oversight mechanisms, to go around the charter-protected rights of Canadians. And now they are saying, we're not telling the police what to do here, but we're giving them the documents. Well, that is completely inappropriate, and it is a complete abuse of power, and it is something that should not happen in a democracy. And Canadians need to be alarmed that if they are going to do this in this instance, what else are they going to do? They have shown time and time again that when it comes to the rights of Canadians, it's not a top priority for them. And for me, as a citizen in this country, I don't want to live in a country where politicians can direct the police on what to do, where they can go and suspend the charter rights of Canadians because they have the right to do so. The real question here is, just because you have the right to do something, should you actually do it? And Canadians need to be aware of what the Conservatives are putting forward. Because as we have seen time and time again, it might not be your rights today, but it sure as heck might be your rights tomorrow.
Yeah, they're trying to instill fear and panic socially against the Conservatives. If there was nothing incriminating, if there was nothing there, then this wouldn't matter. So this is a Hail Mary that we have never really seen before. It's 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D chess, whatever you want to call it. It is absolutely insane. And I know it's extremely confusing, but if you ever get confused or anyone you know ever gets confused, just clip that part where I explained it in as simple terms as I am possibly able to understand and send that or rewatch it, because that's pretty much what is going on. Now, here's Conservative MP Michael Barrett here doing a bit of a press release to talk about what's going on.
Look, the House is seized with multiple issues of Liberal corruption that actually don't even include the issue that we've raised today, this latest issue. But the most recent one to seize the House, that's one caused by the Liberals allowing for hundreds of millions of dollars in dozens of conflicts of interest to flow inappropriately to Liberal insiders under a Liberal appointed chair who was found guilty of breaking Canada's Conflict of Interest Act. A majority of members of the House of Commons did vote ordering the government to turn over its documents to the RCMP so that they can review them and take appropriate decisions. But the government is in violation of that order as ruled by the Speaker of the House, and that matter can be dispensed with very quickly. The government simply has to follow the order of a majority of members that were democratically elected to the House of Commons, which they're not doing right now. The other issue that is yet to be dealt with in the House is that of the other Randy saga, where we have the minister from Edmonton Centre, Justin Trudeau's Liberal minister from Edmonton Centre, Randy Boissonnault, his business partner who he was continuing to do business with, or there's evidence that, contrary to what Mr. Boissonnault claims, that he was continuing to direct his business that he had a 50% stake in while he was serving in Justin Trudeau's cabinet. His business partner, the Speaker ruled, did not provide the evidence and information that was requested him by a parliamentary committee. And it's very simple. Well, the key question was, who is the other Randy? Because the allegation that's been made by some is that it's Justin Trudeau's minister from Edmonton. We need clarity on that, because directing one's business from the cabinet table, of course, is a contravention of the law. And it's also inappropriate that company, well, Mr. Boissonnault owned 50%, would have been receiving contracts from the Government of Canada, which we learned through a belated release of information from Elections Canada. So these are issues dealing with Liberal corruption that have seized the House, and they're effectively obstructing their own agenda, their own productivity. They can't get out of their own way. And this matter is one that hopefully we can get some sunshine on, so as to disinfect it and restore Canadians' confidence.
And if government doesn't resume, if they continue down this path, then all that's left is for that deadline to pass for the block, which will then piss them off, and they're going to stay true to their words. They're not going to extend it, and they are going to call for a vote of non-confidence. This is wild, folks. I mean, there is so much going on. And in the House that happened just recently here, you had a crazy thing that was brought to attention by Liberals. So Pierre Poilievre talked about this cop in Toronto that was shot in the line of duty. I'm not sure if I don't know if the cop died or not, but nonetheless got shot, I believe, in the stomach. Pierre Poilievre called this person a dirtbag, because this person that shot the cop was out on bail for a previous crime. And after Pierre called this person a dirtbag, this criminal a dirtbag, you had a Liberal MP raise a point of order after question period and had this to say.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've noticed over the last several months a real decline in the tenor of this House. It is disturbing to me as a member of Parliament to hear other members of Parliament use names and slurs towards constituents of all of ours. These are Canadians that we're talking about. And Mr. Speaker, when we're using names and calling each other names and calling constituents names, I think we can do better, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of Parliament for Thunder Bay Superior North, and I'm immensely proud of the citizens in my riding, and I would never, ever consider calling any of them a name. For now, thank you.
So that's in direct reference to Pierre Poilievre calling this person a dirtbag. And so now let's take a look at what this dirtbag actually did to a police officer. Here we go. It
was around this time yesterday when a Toronto police officer was shot in the line of duty in the heart of Midtown Toronto. That officer suffered a gunshot wound to the abdomen and is recovering in hospital. 3 people have been arrested and charged.
And tonight we are learning more details about what led to the incident and about the alleged shooter. Sean O'Shea joins us live from the scene. Sean, what more have you learned?
Anthony, from residents, we're finding out surprise and concern that a police shooting would happen right here where they live. And from police, we're finding out who the 21-year-old alleged shooter is, that he had an extensive criminal background, and that he was in fact out on bail at the time that this happened 1 day ago.
24 hours after it happened, police are still gathering evidence. Residents in disbelief over the shooting of an off-duty officer.
This is a very safe neighborhood. Stuff like this doesn't happen around here.
Nice and safe neighborhood. It's kind of
worrying. It's because you wouldn't think it would happen down in our alleyway.
Around 5:30 Wednesday, members of the 53 Division Major Crimes Unit were in the area, and there was a confrontation.
In regards to a robbery investigation, when they came upon a vehicle, and shortly after that encounter, one of our officers was shot.
The chief speaking Wednesday night from outside the hospital where the officer was treated for a bullet wound to his abdomen. Thursday, the mayor offered her best wishes.
I pray for the officer, his speedy recovery.
The 29-year-old police officer.
And it's absolutely disgusting that Pierre Poilievre is being criticized for essentially calling this shooter a cop killer, or a try-to-be cop killer, a dirtbag. That's what criminals are. They're dirtbags. And for that failed liberal radical MP, and that just goes to show you that they try to turn everything partisan. They try to turn even criminals. They try to humanize the most disgusting of criminals and say, hey, whoa, that's crossing a line. Just because that person tried to kill somebody, a sworn police officer, does not mean that they are allowed to be called a dirtbag. That type of sensitivity in politics for our government, it doesn't belong. I'm sorry. That's not me advocating for name calling. That's just overly sensitive, radical federal MPs, liberals and NDP that are ruining this country one day at a time, which brings me the great pleasure of announcing that, fingers crossed, next week or within the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a federal election, because the Bloc is really not getting what they want. They've already been denied one of their demands by the Liberal government. It seems like by ipso de facto of this government shutout, they're going to be denied another one. So again, we're going to have to wait and see, but I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think that Justin Trudeau is going to give in that information and go to the RCMP and release that unredacted information, even though he's already said that he's not going to? Or do you think that the Bloc is going to call for a vote of no confidence? Let me know down below your reasoning as to whatever it is, and I look forward to seeing you guys in a video later on today. Thanks for watching. On your way out, if you haven't yet already, highly encourage you guys to smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.